Uh, no, I grew up, it was live music, from the age of 10, and I chased it. And that was the thing that, calmed the voices in my head, was being around it, and found my way to the backstage door and then a roadie to becoming a tour manager. And I love nuts and bolts, and I love, you know, the chaos of all the variables of what you entail. Uh, and so I thought this is, I'm home, this is it. But drugs and alcohol played a big part of that,
Hmm.
and it really came down to me being 28 and going from tour managing and rising through the ranks from a roadie to a tour manager. To my addiction took me to working for the stage union, turning a wrench, building stages, and all my friends who were on those arena tours are wondering, what are you doing? And that was the half step away from me dying. So when it came to change, and thanks to the help of friends and stuff that were around me, I gave myself over to the white coats. That my best thing. There was no blame game. I was 28. I knew I was going to die somehow, some whatever. Part of me wanted to, probably because it'd be a lot easier if it just by mistake. But that's all I knew when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And so I gave myself over to the white coats, and they told me I was done with the music business. And I said, okay. And I followed the treatment plan for the first couple of years. And then Jack and we actually both went to NYU, but we never saw each other at NYU. But there was a professor at NYU who worked for RCA and such. And he connected us. And at that point, this is back in around late 80s. So I had been working from the early 80s with some of the Bay Area musicians, offshoot bands from the Jefferson Airplane and Hot Tuna and Papa
Wow.
John Creech. So that whole psychedelic scene. And Jack was working with Greg Allman, managing Greg Allman, and then helped put together the Allman Brother reunion in '89. Anyway, that brought us together to working together with Greg and such. That back in 1990, Jack's a manager, and then they're working on that where I was on the road and he was in the office managing. And then I crashed and burned in '92. I got sober, walked away from the business, and then Jack got a hold of me in '93. I was working in the classical world.
Hmm.
You get out of your own way, and things all, somehow it all works out, right? So I had, I got offered a job to work for the largest classical management company in the world, Columbia Artist Management, to do tour logistics for all the major symphonies and ballets. But I didn't have to go out and execute the tours. I just put all of it together, handed it to a tour manager, which worked perfectly because it didn't get in the way of my aftercare, my therapy. It was like, wow. But along that line, so this is now late '93, Jack finds me and says, hey, what are you doing? I said, well, since we last worked together, I got sober. I'm working in the classical world. Don't really like it. It's kind of boring, blah, blah, blah. And Jack at that point had just signed Jeff Buckley. And he can tell a
Yeah.
story from
Wow.
there. So that brought us back together. Um,
Yeah, Gene was the best tour manager. He wouldn't pinch your artist, take you away. That's one thing you had to worry about. But I want to make it clear, I was part of a management team,
Right.
and we all had our NYU roots. NYU Music Business Technology program is what I came out of, and worked for a few different internships, Warner Chapel, and worked for Talking Heads Management. And, I knew I wanted to get into management, but wanted to do kind of boutique management. And then the chance to work with Gregory, they called him the Big A. And there was this opportunity to get Allman Brothers band back together, the Seven Turns tour. And so I learned all about touring and got to work with Gene. Gene was hired to be just with Gregory, right? And then another big management company managed the other guys. And that was a great experience. But then we lost Gene for a couple of years,
All right.
And then I remember, well, I won't go into details, but we're managing Greg Allman, Ronnie Spector. A lot of things happened with them, and we said, you know what, this alternative music was really on the rise.
Sure.
I myself was in an alternative rock band in downtown New York at the time, and really into the scene. And this opportunity to work with such a talent, Jeff Buckley,
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The vocal ability, the songwriting, the guitar, the whole package, right? And he was such a nice guy. And so very special. And we wanted to get the A-Team together. And he just got a big contract with Columbia Records. And that's when we decided to manage him. And that was a 2.5-year tour and campaign for Grace. Grace was his big debut full-length album, much more popular in England and France and Australia. US, not so big. But he was definitely considered like one of the artists that was going to be a legacy for Columbia, much like Springsteen and Barbra Streisand. They looked at him in that sort of lens. Fast forward to 1997, when he was trying to write the next album, and then he had this tragic accidental drowning on the Wolf River off of the Mississippi River. Got the call from Gene. I was in New York and was talking with the other management team partners and overseas. It was just like the worst thing ever. And the worst thing, I say, not because I lost the client, it's because I lost a friend. And he's so full of life. But we know how he was, right? We know he wouldn't smell the roses, he'd eat the roses, right? He saw that beautiful, summer night coming up, and he wanted to take a swim, and unfortunately tourists would go into that area, the Wolf River, and they didn't understand the tides and everything can pull you down. So somebody was accidentally drowning every year. And when that happened, just devastated all of us, and I needed that summer of 97 to kind of figure out, wow, what am I going to do? Because it's so devastating. Then one thing that I know your show gets into is purposefulness in your life.
Absolutely.
My father was a longtime journalist and a senior editor for a major New York paper. And he instilled in me this feeling like, you want to give back. You want to do some service. Shouldn't have this self-serving life, and he championed all sorts of causes in the press and righted a lot of wrongs, I feel. And, Gene came back, I came back from Europe and I had this very memorable meeting with you on the balcony of our old office. And Gene's like, I want to work with you. I want to, pursue road recovery. I just want to do it with you, even if it means leaving everything we have right now with the old management company. And I said, heck yeah, and, we figured that out, purposefulness, that was really the driver. And we knew it was going to take years and years of no pay. No, we didn't do media interviews for like the first 10 years. We just did like a bunch of shows those first 2 years. Many artists in recovery on the stage. They were standing room only shows. People would be out on Stanton Street, right? Remember the big lines trying to get into our shows. But then soon after that, we got into more program focused, working after school and workshops with kids. One first with a foster care agency. So that's sort of the early game plan. We didn't give up music management. In fact, we still have a for-profit company that we keep for consulting and such, and continued some management. But really, there's so much going on with Road Recovery Foundation, especially in the most recent years, being the statewide representative for after-school programming with all these youth clubhouses, that it's just it's beyond our wildest dreams, and it's just you want to keep it going, keep it going. It's tough running a nonprofit.
This is the Knocking Doors Down podcast, featuring celebrities, experts, and everyday people who have overcome adversities, including addiction, mental health, and trauma, to live purposeful lives. And that's what Knocking Doors Down is all about.